We have no leg, so we're good. We have...
We're live now,
Yeah.
Hi.
I can't make Joanne go over here.
Yeah, because Ciara, we're meant to be doing these things beforehand.
No, never mind. We'll just leave it there.
Take her off.
No, we'll just leave it there.
Or
That's what I was
start
trying to do. No, because we can't. Because if no, don't press anything else. Because if we take her down, we'll turn it around and then it'll tell us we can't do it. Because the minute we go this way, we can't go back this way again. Anyway, right. She's gonna be with us in spirit. Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay. Do we need to bring that closer?
I think maybe by our 10th time on here that I won't be nervous.
Or our 10th time will be something really horrible and you'll be like, no, I'm so nervous. Okay.
So I might start off by saying I delayed us this morning because I was in Super Value in Westport trying to get my tickets for the Mayo match, Mayo against Dublin, semi-final this Saturday, and defeated. I basically was queuing there since before 11:30 until, I don't know what time I came in the door here at, after 2 o'clock, and I couldn't get any tickets, and all that was left was Nally and the Hill, and I wouldn't even mind Nally, but I wouldn't, no offence, take my 5.5-year-old to the Hill because it'd just be too rough. So yeah, the only reason that the queue got shorter and shorter was simply because people were moving out of it, going home. Hi, Anya. And yeah, there was people there in the queue still since about maybe 10:30 this morning, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it. So I decided to get myself and Ciara some croissants. So we had our tea just beforehand. Ciara's still supping away. But if any of you have tickets out there, please let me know. I'd love to have a ticket.
Help a girl out who's a fan.
Yeah.
So I'm just fannying about over here trying to get organised.
You
but
still can't say that online.
Totally can. Fanny. It's like when I'm at the beach. Do you ever go to the beach and you know when you're going into the water and it's, you know, you hit your knees and you're like, oh my god, it's so cold.
Sure, you're actually not going
Well, I get to my knees and I'm like, knees, and then I get to my thighs and I'm thighs, and then I get to my vagina. And then of course it reaches your kidneys and then your boobs. Boobs, look, I said that too. It's okay, you know. Vagina is just a word.
Okay.
I get to push her boundaries all the time.
Well, she knows me well enough.
Okay, so we're here today to talk about
Anxiety. We were meant to have somebody else with us today that wanted to come on for chats, but who is struggling with anxiety. And you know, we talked about last week, if you're tuning in last week, that there's certain times that we feel like we can talk about our stuff, and then there's times that we just need to know what's right for us in that moment. So last week you just touched on, say, miscarrying that, and Ciara discussed some of hers, I discussed some of mine, and we both had 2 miscarriages each, but then there was things Ciara didn't want to talk about at the time, and so we need to respect that and respect boundaries and people and stuff. So the girl that was meant to come online today felt that it wasn't right for her after all. So here we are to talk about anxiety. So yes, hello everybody, how are you all doing? Ciara.
All right, Bruce, what's the story? This is my friend Cliff, who's in England. He's going for his 3rd black belt next Thursday, and he's like a shark sniffing blood. This is his description, so I've kind of named him Bruce, just in case. Hey Bruce.
Hi.
Hey Debbie, hey Anya. So
Ciara, so have you ever suffered from anxiety?
I have. Now I'm going to start, I'll start with me. So years and years ago, when I was in my early 20s and probably my mid 20s, and I'd moved to Dublin, and there was a load of stuff that was happening that was stuff that I just didn't know how to deal with. Things had been brought up, and again, we'll touch on this another day.
That you were anxious with, or that led you to becoming an anxious person?
That led me to have anxiety in that moment. And when I was living in Dublin, it was a very free time of my life, as in I tried a lot of things, I experimented with a lot of things. None of them helped my anxiety. And the way my anxiety manifested itself was I started to get panic attacks.
And what is a panic attack for you?
For me, so the way the panic attacks happen for me, they started at my toes. I would be in any given situation, it didn't really matter, and it'd start at my toes. And the way I describe it would be like a blanket. So it was like a hot, fiery blanket that was being brought up my toes, up my shins, up my thighs, across my belly, over my boobs, up to my chest, and up to my head. And that was it, game over. And the times that I found...
What's that to you, just for people who don't know?
I'll explain it. The times that I found that was the worst was when I was in the car with somebody else and somebody else was driving. So it took a while for me to figure out what the problem was, and it was control or lack of control. And that's where my anxiety stemmed from. Not being able to be in control of the things that I was going through, or my own emotions, or people driving a car, or any situation that I didn't have complete control over. And so game over to me meant I would have a full panic attack. Once this fiery blanket hit my head, my forehead, that was me in full panic attack mode. I didn't have the opportunity or the ability or the knowledge to stop it, to breathe, to catch it, to do anything. And even now when I talk about it, I can tell you that I can feel the feelings. I can actually remember every single thing that happened during those panic attacks. And when I was living in Dublin, I was living in a house in Killester. And one of these panic attack times, my sister said she'd drive me to Wicklow, to Blessington. And she's not a bad driver. There's nothing wrong with her driving. But we got in the car and we were driving to Blessington, and in seconds I was in full panic attack mode. I wasn't even able to catch it at my chest. I'll explain that in a second. It went straight to my forehead. I had a mega meltdown of epic proportions. I was screaming at her, let me out of the car, let me out of the car. And she's looking at me like I had 10 heads. And so she pulled over, I got out, I threw up, I screamed, I cried. It took me ages to just get back into my own body. I felt like I was up here and I couldn't catch myself to pull myself down, to ground myself.
And how do you get those tools? Like, how nobody ever teaches us how to react in responses like this. You know, we have first aid response. Yeah. We have so many other responses and to know what to do.
Not in times like that, no.
Nobody teaches us. We don't learn this in school, or we didn't learn it in school. Nowadays it's maybe a bit different.
So my other sister, Anya was on. And I was in my house in Killester, and the same thing happened, but this was on a whole other level. I was kneeling on the bed, and whatever had happened beforehand, and I knew what my triggers were, and I knew what was happening, but again, I hadn't learned what to do to stop it. And I was kneeling on the bed, and I remember being on the phone to Anya as it was happening, and she couldn't talk me down at all. She just couldn't get through to me, and all she heard was thud. And I fainted off the bed face first onto the ground because I couldn't catch it. It had lifted to the top of my head, and that was it. Game over, done and dusted, right? Yeah. Boom. So she had to call the ambulance, and the ambulance had to break the door down of my house to come in and actually check that I was okay. And I was coming to by the time they came in. And all of those, and this happened regularly. It wasn't something that only happened now and again. It was something that hit like a train, came over me, and that was it. I was done. The panic attacks were mega. There was only one person I was able to drive with when he drove, and that was Josh's dad. He was the only person I had no panic attack with.
Why do you think that was?
And it was because I trusted him.
Okay.
You know, and he was an excellent driver. He was very careful in the car, so I trusted him. So it wasn't until years and years later that my panic attacks and my anxiety pre-panic attack all stopped completely, probably the year before I had Josh. And it was lovely. It was a great feeling because I learned how to take control of it. So the way I started to learn about my anxiety and my panic attacks was I started to recognize the blanket. That was my moment of recognition. So when I felt it at my toes, I could feel kind of like a churning in my chest, and I felt it at my shins, and the churning got a little bit more. Felt it in my knees, churning got a little bit more. Thighs a little bit worse, tummy a little bit worse, chest. That's when I could feel like everything started to get constricted. But the minute I could stop it there, as long as I didn't let it go past my chest, no panic attack would happen.
And how did you stop it from going past your chest?
I had to tell it to stop. I had to actually say the words, and I'd say them out loud, and I didn't care where I was. I'd say stop, just stop, just stop, just stop, just stop. And the connection between recognizing the blanket, noticing the different levels of my body, and then actually telling it to stop. Like, I'm not having this anymore. I'm not doing this.
And was this from, say, Did a counsellor teach you this training? Did self-help books teach this training?
No.
Was this just you saying having just like trying to find your own self-response to how to stop this?
Yeah, nobody ever had. I had been in a couple of sessions with different therapists by this time, but we had never dealt with or touched on anxiety. So it was me realizing that it wasn't healthy, it wasn't good, it wasn't serving me, it wasn't fixing me. And I didn't have any of these words either at the time. I'm saying these words to you now because they're words that I've learned, things that serve you and things that, do you justice or stuff like that. I didn't have those words. I just knew that if I didn't fix it, if I didn't stop it in its tracks, nobody else was going to. And I was going to lose my cool in situations where it just wasn't good. So by saying, no, that's it, stop. You have to stop right now. It's enough. I'm not letting go any further. That's it. And it would switch something off, because it was like I was detaching myself from the panic attack, detaching myself from the anxiety. Me, the I, was looking at myself going, no, I don't need this.
So the I was being the observer in that moment.
Completely. And that's where we want to be, because that's the part of us.
That's very difficult to do though when you're in it.
So hard. And like loads of people will say, they'll be like, yeah, but that's easy to say, that's easy to do. And I'm going, I hold my hands up. It is so easy to say.
It takes a lot of control and self-discipline to be able to switch yourself off.
Massive amounts. And it's not just even the switching off, you see. It's being connected enough with yourself to start recognizing signals.
Yeah.
When you're not connected with self, when you have...
Or if you're in a room and there's tension or there's something going on that you don't feel right in your gut, like it's that type of thing. Like, what are those triggers? What are those little things, those little nuggets that you recognize that something doesn't feel right? So it's the same, it's just a different situation. It's like... that worry that you might have if you're going to have an argument or you meet somebody. Notice how your body feels in that moment and what you don't like, so you can recognize it for when you come up against it again. And they're the tools to help you help yourself. So a bit like that with your anxiety, you recognized when you got that tingling, so you thought, okay, hold on a second, I'm in this now.
But it took ages. It took probably 5 years for me to actually learn how to do that for myself. 5 years of having panic attacks. Like, I went to a physiotherapist, and I walked in, I had hurt my ankle, I had severely damaged ligaments and tendons. This was years later. And I walked in the door of the physiotherapist and I sat down on the edge of the couch. Now, I consider myself a very relaxed person. It takes a lot to get me to go like that, right? And I would very rarely be stressed. The only things that really stress me are stuff to do with Josh and if he's safe or not. So when I sat on his table and he said to me, how stressed are you, Ciara? And I went, I'm not stressed at all. There's no stress in my life. There's nothing stressing me. And he looked at me and he goes, all right. And he goes, how sore is your ankle on a level of 1 to 20? And I went, it's 20. And he goes, now how stressed are you? And I went, oh, all right. And what he said next was so interesting. He said, when the mind is in a stressed pattern for 2 weeks or more, it's considered chronic stress. And the mind and the body will reprogram themselves to sit in that stressed place.
It becomes familiar.
5 years of panic attacks. So I had shitloads of stuff to try and, well, I could have figured it out or worked through it, but that's not what you need when you have anxiety or a panic attack. You need help immediately. You need something that's going to work there and then. And
so how did you find that there was good resources out there for you in that, in regards to say like counselling, or like, 5 years ago, anxiety wasn't really talked about at the time. So going back to that point in your life, like, were there friends that you could talk to about it? And if there were they going through it? Did they understand? Or was it just you trying to deal with it yourself?
Yeah, it was me. Like, that's when I was 25. And when I was 25, nobody talked about anything to do with anxiety, at least nobody that I knew. And there were no resources available or services available. And the ones that were just not up to scratch, and they still aren't.
I don't even know if they used the word anxiety back then.
I don't know, because I talked to nobody about it. I just dealt with it myself. And the only way I managed to get through it was to practice my fix. And so you do it once and it works and you go, yes. And then if you don't do it again and you have another panic attack or anxiety attack and you don't put into practice the thing that you figured out that works for you, the brain is a funny thing. It will see it as a failure instead of a success. when you practice it another time and another time and another time, the brain sees it as success. So it knows it can do it because it's done it before, and it starts to do it automatically. So then eventually the panic attack would come and I'd go, oh, it's at my knees. Oh, that's perfect. I can just let that go. I don't have to hold on to it. And then eventually the panic attack would come and it'd start at my toes and I'd go, no, that's fine. I'm not dealing with that. And then the panic attacks stopped. And they stopped because they didn't have a hold over me. I was practicing my fix continuously and consistently. And there was nothing that I needed to be panicked over. Because a lot of the time, and again, this is easy to say, but I'm saying it because I've been through it. A lot of the time, what we're panicking and stressing over are things that A, we can't control, or B, aren't even real. And that's not saying that people are crazy. That's saying that this is what we build up for ourselves. We build this massive amount of worry and stress and anxiousness, and there's nothing to actually be worried, stressed, or anxious over. We're just building it all up into something like a picture that we want to create for ourselves.
But usually in that moment, in the present moment, things aren't as bad.
Never.
You know, unless you're going through a crisis, all right, then they're bad in the moment. And sometimes then we cast ourselves into the future for escapism so that we don't have to deal with it. But yeah, in that moment, like in this present moment, everything is fine and everything's okay. And we're chatting to you guys. So it's all about bringing yourself back into the present moment all the time. It's like a mantra, you know, everything's fine, this present moment. And I know you don't like this word, but sometimes the only word you can use. So in regards to say triggers and that. So here, was there specific triggers for you that set off your anxiety? Like whether it's like certain smells or certain times of the day or certain people around your life.
No, just control. Anything that required me to give up my control, that was it. We were gone, done and dusted. And so I've always been a very controlled person. Like even if I was drinking, even if I was drinking, I wouldn't get hammered. I think I've been drunk like 3 times in my whole life, like really drunk. And even during those times of being really, really drunk, I can remember everything I do and everything everybody else does because I can't let go. I can't.
Well, that's actually true because she's the worst person to have a disagreement with because I don't remember anything. Like I think that my mind is so full of I don't know what that it has no more absorption level unless it's something really, really interesting. So I remember back in the day if me and Kira had like a big disagreement, like I knew I was always in for it because I could never remember the exact details. And I might say, but you always say this. And she's like, well, hold on a second here. I remember exactly the whole conversation. So I could basically never win. So I was well just to go away with the tail between my legs because Kira just remembered everything. Like.
I do. And I never have. I've never let myself go to the point that I don't remember anything. And I don't think I ever could. That to me would just be a whole other level. But I wouldn't want to either. I really enjoy the fact that I do keep a clasp on what I need to. But back then, the minute I lost control, it was just... It was too scary and such a hard thing to pull yourself back from. So potentially that's why I might be such a controlled person now. And because of that.
Like, do you think that life circumstances has had like a hold on that? Like that whatever you've been through in your life, good or bad or whatever, has implicated you having this issue over control?
Oh, definitely. There's definitely a big part of my childhood that has led to the fact that I want to have control in my life.
So say, for instance, so basically everything that we are to date sets us up for who we are currently, like in this present moment, and good and bad, you know. So if we do have anxiety, it's generally because of something that maybe happened, or like you might naturally be like an anxious or nervous person. And I kind of feel that since I've got to know anxiety a bit, that it tends to be people who are like really sensitive, who are complete empaths, and who just take on people's stuff all of the time. And I think that those type of people are the quickest ones almost to get anxiety. Would you say that would be true or no?
Yeah, and sometimes anxiety can come from a trigger, from something.
Like some trauma that's happened in your life.
Yeah, and we don't generally tend to have... So we control what happens in our lives right now. We have control and choice and all of those awesome things. You know, whatever goes on in our space is in our control and we have to take responsibility for it. But there are things in life that are outside of our control that we don't have responsibility for, that we couldn't be asked to have responsibility for out of any stretch of the imagination. And it's when those things happen that we don't have control over, that it tends to bring to the surface, you know, anxiety or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's really learning how to deal with it, how to cope with it. And that is something that we have control over, even though it doesn't feel like it when we're knee deep in the middle of an anxiety attack.
So say when you got the supports that you needed, like who were those supports, and how did it benefit you, or would you recommend anybody who's going through anxiety right now to follow your same path?
I never got the support from anybody. I never ever met anybody who was decent or good or right to deal with anxiety. It was something that was brushed under the carpet. It wasn't very important. It wasn't necessary to talk about. And there were other things that needed to be dealt with before anxiety is to be dealt with. And my thought process on that is, if you're debilitated with an anxiety attack or a panic attack, and if you haven't figured out your triggers and you haven't figured out your fix, and you go and you ask somebody, what can I do to make myself better?
But so, because I interrupt for a second, sometimes we don't know our triggers.
100%.
And sometimes, like, okay, so if we don't know our triggers, then we can't fix it. So we might, okay, I've done a lot of work on myself over the years through counselling, different things for different reasons, and we'll go into that another time. And you've just mentioned that you have been through different counsellors for different reasons as well. And it's probably why we're on here, you know. We're fixed. We're not fixed. But that, like, so many people don't understand or don't know why they are the way they are for both good and bad reasons.
A lot of that is again to do with not being in tune with yourself.
Or being afraid to become in tune with yourself.
Oh, totally.
Because dare they look at themselves and think that something might be wrong, because then they're going to have to sit up and try and correct that situation. And then there's a ripple effect, because once you start to like better yourself and give yourself the supports that you need to be the person who can just live an everyday life without kind of getting pulled down or being a prisoner to anxiety or whatever the case may be, that I always go off on these tangents and I get a brain freeze then. Tell me now,
support.
Yeah, so that oh sorry, I'm all hot and flustered down the tongue is falling off. Christ. Oh, why do I always, I think I get so nervous. Tell me now what I'm saying there.
You were talking about support and about people having to sit up and, you know, when they face.
Oh yeah, because what happened then is that once, I don't know if you found this, that once
I remember things now.
See, that when you start to change yourself for the better, then the ripple effect then is that the friends and the people that you were around, there's two ways it can go. One, they really support you and they're happy to see you grow and flourish and become the person that they've known you to be. Or they don't want you to grow because they want you to stay stuck, because that in turn then makes them think, well, who does she think she is? Like, she's on her high horse. So isn't she great now that she says she's not drinking anymore, or she's not doing this anymore, or she's going to the gym or whatever it is? Because that makes them in turn then look at themselves and think, well, what's wrong with me? But if you can like have your blinkers on and stay through that like rockiness, if you like, with the way friends kind of sway to and fro, and try and let whatever friends that kind of don't serve you, I know it doesn't sound great, like let them fall away, then it leads the doors open for other people to want to come into your life who are on that frequency or that wavelength, that who have done the work on themselves. So it's better, positive people who are going to offer you support and that, and you get a better network of people then for who you are at that time. And these things change from time to time in life always, because we're always constantly changing. But it's not to be afraid of letting some old friendships kind of go, because sometimes we didn't realise until we start working on ourselves. Why are you smiling? That they were a bit toxic at the time.
Yeah, no, I'm smiling because Donna's on. Hey Donna, how's it going?
Why?
So something very funny happened. Donna doesn't know this, so this will be a first for her. Years and years ago, I was sitting in company, and something that I would talk a lot about would be, you know, people are either ready to receive your positivity or they're not. And it really is that simple.
Oh, I think you were telling me this before.
When you're positive, right? When you're, we'll get back to this in a second, but this has a point. So when you're positive, sometimes to other people it can feel like you're vomiting positivity on them, and they're not ready for it, and they're like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Or I can think that you're fake either.
Yeah, I would never go down that route though. I just see it as people just going, oh, for God's sake. So I was sitting in company years and years ago. I think it was probably 2008 or 2009. And Donna's a super positive person, very awesome chick. And she had put something up on Facebook. And I was sitting in company with the person who was like, oh, for God's sake, I can't believe she's putting this up again. And I was like, oh my God, that's so awesome. And it was in that moment, you know, because when you're ready to take it on and you're ready to listen to it and hear it. And I can't even remember what it was that she had said, but it was one of those moments where you go, oh, now I kind of know how I want to level up a little bit differently or level up a little bit better. And in those moments, you have to be ready for the people who are in your circle when you start to level up to go, oh my God, I can't believe she said that, because it is a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
The minute you decide to rise to another level and to be the best version of yourself, whatever that looks like, people will go either yes or no. But you give them the opportunity then to either meet you where you are or go and do their own thing. And I think letting go is massive. Okay, we've gone off on another tangent from anxiety. Why don't you talk about yours? Do you like how we segued into that?
Yeah, Ciara, there's no warning there or anything.
I know.
You liked doing this, like, Ciara's like, boom, there it is, deal with it.
But if I was to give you any warning, you'd have all this preparation. You might as well just throw
Well,
it.
I knew it was coming all the way through, and she's like, I'll just keep Ciara talking. So
Did you see how she asked a lot of questions and tried to keep a lot of focus on me?
I thought if she answers all the questions, I won't need to say much. Okay, so spotlight's on me. Well, it is 3 years ago now this February that I got anxiety for the first time. Hi, I'm Thelma Gibbons. I've said I'm Thelma Gibbons on this quite a lot.
Oh
This
Lord.
is like the confession, I don't know, confession stories we should call this.
Confessions of a girl with a bird tattoo. You know,
Oh
like
yeah,
the
that's my dove that I got
girl
from
with
my
the dragon tattoo.
miscarriage.
You're the girl with the bird tattoo.
And I have another one there for my other miscarriage. But anyway, so basically in my life I have been through quite a bit, and a lot of trauma and a lot of sick family members and everything. And my natural disposition, I suppose, is to smile through it all. So maybe the more smilier I am, the harder it is. I remember Ciara's mom was one of the first people who found out about my abuse, and she said to me one day, I think she was reading something on the paper about sexual abuse or something, and then I was like, recognizing one's own potential and utilizing it in order to overcome life struggles is paramount, although often very difficult.
Hey Marcel, thank you. And you're right, yes, it is hard sometimes to actually figure out who you are and what's going on in your life and then do something about it.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? You actually said that very, very well, because I think so many people come out with these great ways of explaining what's going on for them and all the rest that it's almost like a self-help book. It's amazing.
It's very good, yeah.
Anyways, okay, she's bringing me back to my anxiety. Okay, so anyways, yes, and Ciara's mother turned around one day to me. I was walking into her sitting room and she said, Thelma, there's a lot of hurt behind that smile. Oh, I swear to God, a train could have run me over in that moment. And I was like, how can I smile through that, you know? And I think, anyway, that's when a lot of stuff came out. Okay, so going back to my anxiety. So, not quite sure if I should tell you all this online, and how my fear of telling you how I got my anxiety and the fact that I have anxiety, or had, I'm hoping, is that my biggest worry when I'm in it, and a little bit of worry after, is that fear of like ending up in a straitjacket, and like my kids getting taken away from me, like, is such a huge thing. Such fear around that, and being an unfit mother. Now I know what it feels like to have someone staring at me.
Into your soul.
I didn't need to be staring at you before. I just really listened to it.
That's me too.
Okay, no pressure. Anyways, yeah. So, for me as a woman and a mother and a wife, to have anxiety is very intimidating. It's very vulnerable. It's very isolating. It's very lonely. I didn't know hardly anybody who's been through anxiety. My friends didn't understand it. I did a bit of research. There seems to be all different types of anxiety, social anxiety, and then there's certain triggers, and it is to catch those triggers. So one of mine is nighttime. Just different things happened in my life that nighttime, now I realise, like, is a bit scary for me. I'm afraid of the dark. a little bit even.
I sleep with the light on. You're okay.
Do you?
Yeah.
And then the worries, you know, and then trying to be strong for your kids and everything, and for them not to think that you've got this stuff going on, because there's a point in time when you can be frank and honest with your children and let them know, because at the end of the day they are humans and you want to educate them on how they can be in this world with all that they are going through. And that sounds really good. Woo!
This is recorded, so you
yeah,
can
I
watch
know.
that back. I take notes.
And but there are times then where you do need to kind of just edit what you're saying, especially if your kids are young. Mine are very young at the moment; they're 4 and 5.
It's all age appropriate, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyways, basically, I'm a person who never really took drugs because I was always afraid that if I did, that I'd be that person who died on a pill or whatever the case may be. And I've always been that person who felt everything for everybody. And I think that's probably because of I came from a sexual abuse past, and we'll go into that another time. And I didn't want anybody to feel any pain, so I always wanted to kind of take on their pain. And I only recognised in the last couple of years that I would have a self-control issue, in that I only realised that I'm actually very controlling, and that sounds awful, but I'm very controlling out of love. Like there can be controlling out of
violent too. Look at that.
Yeah, there can be control out of violence and keeping people down. Whereas my control is that I need to know the energy of the room and to know it's safe, and that comes from my abuse thing, right? So, if I felt that somebody was upset or something was wrong, then I need to fix them first, so that they don't feel any pain, and secondly, so that the energy of the room is okay, so that I can actually be okay in that. And I didn't realize that maybe all of these were possible contributing factors towards getting anxiety in the first place. I remember when I was in 6th class, my mother says to me, like, Tammy, you can't take everybody under your wing. And then I suppose when I was a bit soft, people used to take advantage of that and be mean to me or whatever. So I grew a bit of a thick skin when I was in school, and I suppose my abuse helped me to be resilient to, I suppose, all that type of stuff. And it was only when my abuse hit the papers and everybody found out about what happened in my youth that my soul was so exposed that it kind of shattered me. I wasn't ready for, it's almost been like being a celebrity in a sense. I wasn't ready for the publicity of everybody. I wasn't ready for everybody to ask me how was I, or go into the details of everything. And then also, you might often find that somebody who's been through the trauma, so whether someone who's had cancer, whether somebody whose parent died, whatever it may be, that's the person that feels like they have to be strong for everybody. Like, I'm the one who went through that stuff, and yet I felt I had to be strong for everybody to carry them through it. But where is the softness for you and what you've been through? And we go through that maybe in another video, but just to touch on that. So I think this is all to build up maybe to my sensitivities of slightly becoming anxious, that I didn't recognize or understand, because like there was no psychology back then. Like, you know, kids were kind of told to be seen and not heard type of thing. And nowadays, thank God, they're going into, like, say, the psychology of a child and what they're feeling and all the rest, and through artwork and all that. So anyways, fast forward on then to my darling husband bringing me on holidays. We went to Amsterdam, and a bold child syndrome came over me in Amsterdam. So we left at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I think we arrived there about 5 o'clock in the evening. And we arrived in the hotel. The hotel was lovely. Amsterdam was lovely. My top piece wanted to strip itself off. And then we went for a cheese tasting thing, and there was like a glass of wine with that. And we hadn't eaten all day. And anyways, so they were saying to us, oh, go down the red light district and have a look down there. It's really interesting. You'd have to see that while you're here. And all this kind of jazz. And, you know, you can see the pubs that they're serving, like, say, drugs and all the rest, because it's legal over there. So anyways, bold child me, I was thinking, because I thought, oh, I trust my husband and all the rest and everything else, I decided, oh, maybe I'll try like a hash cake or whatever, you know. And now I hadn't considered, because this is naivety, and a lot of people have done this, so I have spoken to over the last couple of years. I hadn't anything to eat all day, so my stomach was empty, so I should have copped on to the fact that even if you're to have alcohol on an empty stomach, it'll go straight to your head. I didn't cop on to that fact. Also, I'm very skinny. We talked about in another show or chat. I am skinny. And so therefore whatever I take is going to hit me harder. And I went up, I remember feeling really nervous, and there was a couple ahead of us, and they were saying that, like, you know, we've never done this before, what do you do? And they said, oh, you take a bite of this cake and you wait 20 minutes and you see how you feel, and then, you know, see if you're okay, and then take another bite, another 20 minutes, and so on, so forth, till it's all gone. Or if you want to get to that stage. So for me anyways, there was no hit. I didn't feel any hit. And then we were walking down the red light district, having a look at that and everything, and that was all fine. It was a bit of a shock factor because the windows are crazy. Anyways, so my little bold child came out again, and I was like, oh, come on, let's do one more. And I remember going up to your man, like it's billowing with smoke in these pubs. And I went up to your man and I said, oh, can I get one of each? There's a white one and a brown one. And he said, one's uplifting and one's calming. And I didn't even know which one was which. And I said, do you know what, give me two of each. And he was laughing, and he was like saying, you definitely don't need two of each, just one of each is enough. And I was just so naive. And like, I know it sounds so funny and so stupid, but like, I would just like you guys out there to know that, like, this thing happens all the time. And there's no rule book. And if you're into drugs or associated with drugs, you might know or have an understanding. But like, I was as green as
the grass.
Yeah, thank you. And as green as the grass I was eating, yeah. And so anyways, we didn't even have the two. We just had the one. But this time, these were like muffins on steroids, excuse the pun. The other one was like a slice of cheesecake, like wrapped up really professionally, like a Madeira cake with a hash leaf on it. This is like a proper big muffin, but it was huge. So this time I didn't wait. I went, and you know, that's my downfall. So then, anyways, I won't tell you the next piece. I might go to that another time. I went to a particular show.
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
You might have an idea what that was, just for the crack. And anyways, it was, I don't know if any of you guys are out there had kids or whatever, but for me, a little bit like what you were talking about, starts at your toes. When I was coming up on this muffin cake, like, I just thought, guys, this was harsh. I just thought that this was going to give me a light little hit. I'm going to see what it feels like the people over in Amsterdam, like they do. And that it was just going to be like a touristic thing to try out, and always going to be fine, and everything was fine. Like, I never thought about serious consequences. Excuse me, after having my breakfast roll there, I'm so sorry. But like I'm a very responsible mother, and I'm always thinking about consequences and how this can affect my life and my kids and all the rest. But this was something that I thought was so innocent. Anyway, ended up coming up on this hash cake, hit me so hard. I was wailing in the back of this like town hall theatre, if you like, laughing. And I swear to God, I was like banging the back seat going, whoa! And I remember saying to my husband, oh my God, this stuff is great. Like, I should take this every single weekend. It was like, it really gave you the most bellyful full of laughter that you've ever experienced in your life. It was just amazing, and it was such a stress buster. Like, it was just phenomenal. However, then that was all grand. Ended up coming down from it, and we got in the taxi. My husband said to me, the taxi's not stopping at our hotel. Now, I don't know whether I saw too many movies or what. I just thought, like, that's it, we're getting trafficked now, and like, it's over. But I have to thank my sexual abuse in a way, right? And I know myself and Ciara sometimes can laugh at this because, you know, if you've been through stuff, trauma or anything, you can just laugh about it once you're at the other side eventually. And I think that my abuse actually got me so good at my survival skills that I was on my phone. I put like a record on my phone, and I was trying to push down the laughter as much as I could because it kept erupting all the time. And I was trying to say to my husband, like, you know, all right, so that's our hotel. Oh yes, we're going to get out now. Yeah, and basically trying to let the driver know that we were completely with it, and that we were no stupid fools, that we're just because we're tourists. Eventually the taxi driver goes, my husband turned around and he goes, let us out of this taxi. And he was like, oh, you fucking tourists. So we got out anyways, and then got up to the hotel room, and I just went on a complete paranoid downer trip. Like, anyway, I don't want to get into stuff that's going to like bring up stuff for myself and my family, but it just wasn't nice. It was absolutely horrific. to the point like I actually rang my dad home in Ireland and told him I overdosed on drugs. And like, for me to even say that is absolutely crazy, because he was so shocked, because I was always a sensible one in our house. My brothers and sisters might disagree, but I felt I was always a sensible one in my house, and I was annoyed at myself that I let myself do this. And anyways, it was horrific. I can see now why people could feel that they could jump off like a 5-story building or whatever and think they can fly. Anyways, I managed to get through the night, but not very well. And the next day was very, very hard for me as well, with just complete paranoia, immense worry, immense anxiety that I now know that was then, and like even like screaming like help, help, like all this crazy stuff, like and thinking all these thoughts that weren't true and everything, like. And anyways, moving on from that, all I could think about was getting home to my kids. And like you had said, like I felt like I was up here looking down upon myself, and like my kids were on a parallel universe and I couldn't get to them, and that was horrific as a mother. Anyways, I got home, and about maybe a week later or so, I took half a sleeping tablet, which I rarely ever take medication, but I've got fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and stiffness and all the rest, and so every now and again I'm meant to take tablets and I don't take any. But my doctor said if I don't get enough sleep, that my body doesn't rejuvenate itself and, you know, get itself better, and I'm worse the next day, and then you get into a cycle. So I took half a sleeping tablet that night, and oh my God, I went back into the same paranoia, same trip that I had on holidays, going, oh my God, I don't feel safe. Oh my God, I'm so worried. Oh my God, oh my God. The fear I think is actually worse than I've been through in my sexual abuse as a child. The fear was absolutely so real and so horrific. I just felt like, oh my God, I gotta get out of here. I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe. I ended up going to counselling for it, to see what happened. I cried so many tears over how stupid I was to do something like that, to put myself at risk, my life at risk, my mental health at risk, you know, everything. And I didn't really, like you, get the support that I needed, because my counsellor was very, very good. But I think that you need to have like anxiety specific counsellors, you know, and my friends had no clue what I was going through. They didn't understand. They just couldn't comprehend it. And I found then what was happening was, like, say maybe it apparently when you have a traumatic experience in your life, it stays in your body until you are able to kind of break it down until it's not there anymore. And there are different ways of doing that we might get into again some other time. But yeah, basically, anyways, it came into my every week, and then it came into my every day, and then the cycle was I was waiting for it to happen, and I didn't think. And then sometimes there was no triggers; it would just happen. And I remember Teresa McGuire putting up on Facebook a video of a farmer who was in his little cabin on his tractor. And he was saying that his wife didn't know he was doing this video, and not many people knew, and that he was thinking about suicide because of all the stuff that he was feeling at the time. And I remember watching that in the morning before I had a shower, and I was crying my eyes out, because the year before last, I think it was, 4 times I had suicidal thoughts. And I remember being in the sitting room, like looking at my kids thinking like, God, maybe they're better off without me, or you know, like, what good am I anyways? And this, for me, it all stemmed from those fucking drugs. And maybe there's an undercurrent of anxiety that was there all the time, but I have been through so much more in my life that I can't believe this, like, knocked me down. I felt completely in a prison to it. The only way I can describe my anxiety is that if somebody had given me a straw and covered the rest of me in quicksand, that it was that one straw that was my lifeline, and at any second that could have got pulled. It's the most debilitating, scariest, dark hold place you can ever be in. And those attacks, then I realised when a panic attack was, it's like getting the most intense pins and needles you've ever had, like, and an intense blast of heat, like if you've gone through menopause, rushing through your body, and then the pins and needles, and then feel like, you know, someone strangling you. You actually physically can feel your throats tightening. And I was like, oh my God, I don't feel safe, like, oh, the fear. And like, I know there's like a 5-step program to say like something on the lines of look at 5 things you can see, touch 3 things that you can feel, taste something, smell something, and something else. Anyways, that's fine doing that when you're not in it.
Yeah.
When you're not in it, practice those when you're not in it with an emotion, with a happy emotional response. So if you feel so happy that, say, we brought down croissants today, in that response then maybe smell the smell, taste the taste. So you're going back into your body, as Kira was saying, that you recognize what's happening in your body at that moment. And so you can practice that for good things. And then it can help you practice them in the negative ones. But when you're in it and you've gone past that fucking crazy spiral, excuse my French, and you're gone out there, you're gone out the window, like, Jesus, it's hard to get you back in.
Very.
You know? And I think that if you know what you were saying here about your stress response, and if you're in that for a 2-week period, that what that does to your body. So if you allow yourself, when I say allow yourself, it's because you don't know how to correct it. But so when you're in these responses of these spirals, right, and they're happening on a daily basis, eventually it gets so debilitating that you may not want to leave your house. And then there's times of when you might need to seek a counsellor or speak to your doctor. And I know everybody has fear around drugs. I personally did not want to take any drugs for my anxiety. Number one, I didn't want to think I had it. I fucking hated it, excuse my French. I despised it. I didn't want it in my life. I felt I was so much better than this and I'm stronger than this. But what happened was I had so much anger, as I still have a little bit of it, towards having anxiety, that this is not going to take me down. Like, as my sister says, you did not get here just to get here. That I just thought, like, I have so much more to give and I can't believe that this is pulling me down, that I don't need to take drugs. And I spoke to numerous amount of people about medication because I have a bubbly personality and I get on well with everything, and I just get on with stuff, all problems, all issues, throw any type of rubbish at me and I get on with it, you know. But this really kept me prisoner to myself and to the world. So I knew I had to do something. So I did a lot of research on what tablets I take. I went to Tom Tracy, spoke to him. I went to a counsellor, spoke to her, and they put me on I think it's Etalpro, ETHALPO, I think it is. I know there's different types. So they start you off at 5 milligrams for a week or so, and then they up you then to 10 milligrams. And then for me, I just stay on the 10. And other people, depending on how worse you are, they might up you to even more. And I know a lot of people at this stage who are more. Like Tom Tracy told me that he dispenses 300 tablets a month. Now, that's only one chemist in Westport, and there's probably about 7 chemists in Westport, and then that's only Westport. So that's why we were thinking that it'd be good to talk about anxiety and all that. I personally want to get to a point that I can come off the tablets, because I was afraid here that I didn't want it to change my personality. I didn't want it to dumb me down. I didn't want them to make me just like numb, you know, because the reason why is because I want to process whatever's going on in my life. And what do I mean by process? To try and notice the triggers, try and notice the emotional responses that I'm getting, the negative emotional responses that I'm getting, and how can I stop them from escalating. And also, like, social media and all that, they don't help, scrolling through pages. So I had to come away from all that for a while. I was off it nearly 8 months to a year, I think. And I'm still working through it, but now I am in more control of my anxiety than what it was the other way around. I still get anxiety. It still catches me when I don't realise it. I still now worry a little bit about going on holidays by myself. I still worry about doing things by myself sometimes. If I have to go away somewhere, if I'm in a hotel room, what if I get anxiety? And then it's a what if? So then that casts into the future. And anxiety is about the future. And so now I have to really, really work on what it kind of helps me is bring myself back at the moment to tell me you're okay and tell me you're safe and everything's fine. Right now in this moment I am safe and I am fine. And so Tom Tracy did say to me, when you go on these tablets, he said, excuse the pun, your body will piss out what it doesn't need and it will absorb in what it does need. And it'll keep you at this kind of plain level. And he goes, the day you tell me that you're starting to feel back to your normal self for a little while in, he says the day we start weaning you off those tablets. So that felt really good for me to know that I'm not losing my absolute marbles and that I will be okay and that I do have the supports. Because I never want to go back to ever thinking that suicide as an option for me. Now, when I say it, I know people say that they talk about whoever talks about suicide will never do it, they're only looking for help. And that is maybe true. But it doesn't matter whether I felt that I was actually going to do it or not. These thoughts come into my head. To get to a point of having any of those thoughts in your head is not okay.
Mm.
It's not okay. And if you get to that level, you really need to seek help. Whatever that help is for you. Whether it's like you were talking about the last day here, journaling, or a friend, or a dog.
I think something that's really important as well is to note that when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to needing help, you know, and for the normal things like needing counselling, needing therapy, needing whatever, right? There's so many amazing people, so many unbelievable professionals who are so incredibly good at their job that when you go to them, they can help you talk about the things you need to talk about and work through the things that you need to work through in the way that they know best.
Yeah.
I have never met anybody who does that for anxiety. I have never, ever, and I've spoken to so many people and clients that I have and friends that I have, and one particular friend who was here the last night and is in the horrors. It's the only way to describe it. 10 months worth of anxiety, of debilitating anxiety, like debilitating anxiety. And she walked in.
You know, sorry for a second. You know when they say it's like if you go to the zoo saying a lion breaks down, the lion is right in front of you, okay? But it's like having that like standing in front of your kettle. It's like having that just in the shower, that you think that lion is there and you can't get rid of it, and your mind plays tricks on you. No matter how you feel, no matter what you try and do, you can't get out of your mind that there's no fucking lion in front of you. Yeah. There's nothing to worry about, but something switches in your brain.
And so this girl, you know, she's, for me, two things that I think are so amazing when I see it in people. Being vulnerable and being brave, right? Half the reason we've decided to do these conversations is because we're really encouraging people to talk and to understand that there's so many people going through the same things, different situations, different scenarios, same jazz, right? And that it's completely okay to talk. And we're not here as counsellors. We're here just to have the chats, which can be such an important thing to do. So I had this amazing girl in my house and she was talking about how bad it was, and she's been vulnerable and brave. I mean, she has been vulnerable and brave to the expert level degree, because she's gone out and she has told I don't know how many therapists how she feels. She's tried every single therapy, counselling sessions, massage, you name it, to try and figure out what the fuck is going on for her. And her final straw the last day was to walk up to the mental health clinic. And she had an appointment made, and she walked in the door, and you're going to touch on this, I hope, in a minute, or you touched on it already. She walked in the door and she said, you know, an appointment has been made and I need to see whoever it was. And a guy turned around and said to her, what ages are your kids? How are your kids doing? And the minute she said that, I remembered a conversation that Thelma and I had about the fact that her biggest fear is that if she ends up talking about the fact that she's anxious and telling people that she has anxiety, and God forbid something ends up happening that she has to be taken off to the mental, that somebody will take her kids. Hang on a second. That's not what we're here for. If you're brave enough and you're vulnerable enough to ask for help, and I can guarantee you there are many, many people that have asked for it and it hasn't come. When you're brave enough to do that and to ask for that help, there should be services on the other end who actually give a shit.
Sometimes it's not a case of being brave. Sometimes it's a case of there's no other choice.
Exactly.
Somebody might have brought them in because it could be that last minute that they have on this earth. It's like dire straits. It's like it's life or death.
You're not looking for someone to judge you in that moment. No. You
want someone to save you. It's basically the bottom line. You want somebody, please save me. I don't want my life to end.
Exactly. Is there any chance that you can help me? Okay, it's really important that my kids are okay, but they are. They're fine. I'm not, and I need the help. I need your support. I need your encouragement. I need the connection. And when you're in a place that you've got the balls to go and do that, at that point, the person on the other side of a desk should recognize that and should say, first of all, well done for coming in.
Yeah.
Secondly, sit down. Can I get you a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Here's a glass of water.
Yeah.
Can we have a chat? Tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
Let me give you some suggestions. Try and take your energy out of where it is, because it's in the shit. It's not in a happy, bubbly, lovely place. It's crap. It's not that nice to be in that position. And so when you're in that position and you're sitting in front of the person on the other side, they don't need to be thinking about the fact that they get paid a wage at the end of the week. That's not what this, if that's what you're there for, if that's what you're in that job for, then leave the job.
Yeah.
Leave the job.
Yeah.
Because that's not okay. It's
like
not okay.
Your reaction is whether this person's going to live or die. That's the end.
It
That's
is.
the bottom line.
It is. Your reaction is what's going to help that person to leave your office and to feel better in that moment. It might only be for 15 or 20 minutes, but you've given them 15 or 20 minutes that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
Or are you going to be that person that makes that client leave feeling worse than when they came in? And let me tell you something, and you've just said it. You can't really get much worse than how you feel in those moments.
No, you can't.
So for the person behind the desk to be able to make you feel worse, they must have done a damn bad job. And that's where we are at the minute.
It's not that I want to necessarily justify them and their behaviour, but it's because they have no, excuse my language, fucking clue. They've no clue. And then they might be dealing with people who've come into them who've had anxiety or think they've had anxiety or whatever. And anxiety is different for everybody. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we may not express how at an all-time low that we are. Like, I know I've gone into SuperValu to get my shopping, and I might have had one of those days, thankfully they were just few days, where I was at my all-time low, and I'm still going there, hi, how are you? Mm-hmm. How's your day? How is things? And like underneath it, like literally treading water to beat the band, like inside me with this.
It's like when people talk about the invisible diseases, right? When you're talking about things like anxiety, you could be meeting someone who is dolled up to the nines, who's in their favorite high heels, and they've got their nicest top and they're fully made up, and they're having the laughs and the smiles and the jokes with you. And underneath it, you don't realize that they've had to make such an amazing effort to leave their own house. They have had to get their kids ready in the morning with a smile on their face. They have had to take the next breath and the next breath and the next breath and the next breath in order to just get into their car. Yeah. And they can't stay at home. They have to go and get the food for the shopping, because they have to come home and they have to feed their kids. Yeah. Because they know, they understand, they get that they have to parent. If you're not a parent, there's something else that you feel like you have to do. But in order to do all those things, they have to feel like they can breathe. Yeah. They have to feel like they can walk out the front door. That's what people with anxiety have to go through. And you're going to walk up. The services do not do it justice. They do not do it justice. And I have no problem with having a debate with anybody to say otherwise. And I don't think anybody will say anything other than that. There are so many people with anxiety, so many people we both talk to, and nobody has a positive story that I've spoken to about being helped with anxiety. Yeah. That girl that we're speaking about needed help there and then with her anxiety. And she was told, come back in a couple of weeks and we'll talk about grief counselling. In 2 weeks?
Yeah.
What happens?
Another thing is that these people, okay, some of them are good, but these people, what they're doing is that they have been taught by their tutor and reading from a book about how you're going to be up against people who are going to come in who've got anxiety, and this is how you respond. And I can understand that, okay, fine, some of them might be doing their best. But unless you've gone through something yourself, I'm not by any means suggesting that any of them go through any of this, but it's very hard for them to have the absolute compassion and empathy for somebody who actually has gone through this type of anxiety.
And you see, we're not dealing with a call centre for three. Do you know, we're not dealing with someone who's learned off a script. No. Oh, I'm very sorry, I can't help you right now because of X, Y, and Z. We're dealing with real people who have real issues. Just because your phone broke, well, that's okay. We can sort that out with the call centre for three. But this isn't that. This is I'm broken. And
this could be like the last phone call that they're going to have.
Exactly.
It can be the last 5 minutes that they're going to have with somebody. It could just be the end of the tether, they're going to have. I know somebody who had got at the point and wanted to basically jump off the point, and they rang their counsellor and the counsellor didn't answer. And then they rang me and I convinced her to come to my house and we chatted and she's fine. I then rang her counsellor the next day expressing about what happened, and her counsellor gave off to me about her and then give off to her when she met her again to say that she broke contracts, that she shouldn't have gone outside of just dealing with the counsellor at that time. Now, I do not think that all counsellors operate like that. I know when I was going to counselling, my counsellor had asked, you know, who was she or whatever. I do want to just touch on something about counselling though. I've been through a few in my time just because of my sexual abuse and different things like that. And I think it is very, very difficult for us to reach out and get a counsellor in the first place, and to think that you need help or that you're not perfect or you're not normal or whatever. Listen, guys and girls, there are many people, in fact the majority of people out there, who have gone or will go to a counsellor at some stage in their life but just may not talk about it. But I need to express this to you because this has happened to me and it's happened to another friend of mine, that I have gone to a few counsellors initially, and the energy and the work ethic between the two of us, just the dynamics just was not working out. It is so raw, it's so vulnerable to put yourself out there, to come to make a phone call in the first place and then to arrive at their door and worry about all the expectations and what's going to happen. But when you go in, and even if the phone call isn't right, then that person's not for you. If you meet them at the door and the energy's not right, that person's not for you. So when you get the connection with somebody, it's like finding a doctor. You need to find somebody that you connect with, that you can talk to, and who you feel that is listening to you, understanding you, and that you're getting some headway with them. Because if you don't have that, then they are not serving you. It's going to make the situation worse. Unfortunately, we have to go through some of these hurdles to get what it is, to get the right counsellor that actually best suits us.
And that's not necessarily the counsellor's fault. It's just two souls rubbing each other up the wrong way, and that's okay. When you find the right one, when you find someone who is suited to you, it's an absolutely fantastic relationship. I went to a fabulous, and again we'll discuss this on another video, I went to an amazing woman in the Rape Crisis Centre in Castlebar. Oh my god, like, so a bit like Calma said at the beginning of her
1 second, some counsellors are free and some of them that you do have to pay for. So we might go into counsellors.
We might do that for the other. So when I went over to her, and I remember, like, I laugh a lot. If I'm really nervous about something or if I'm really upset about something, I laugh through it. So
that's your...
the worse it is, the more I laugh, and then of course I feel like I always have to talk, or I used to feel like I always have to talk to cover the silences, because God forbid you have an awkward silence. And I remember going to this. You never think that
we talk a lot.
No, we don't actually. Not at all. It's only for the cameras.
Because this is probably up 2 hours now.
So I remember going to her one day, and I was doing the usual, and I was waffling the head of her, and I was yap, ha, yap. And she said nothing.
She let you run out of steam.
Oh God, no, she said nothing for the whole situation, the whole session. She didn't even talk. And at the end of the whole thing, she goes, "Now, Ciara, the next time you come in, maybe you won't need to laugh so much." I was like, "Oh shit." And she goes, "You know, you don't have to." And I was like,
that was your another moment to me.
Okay. And so after a while, I started to get used to actually just being, rather than having to do something. And finding that in her,
I think she found your mask. You know, she
oh yeah, she was all over it.
You see, that's it exactly as well. A good counsellor that really wants to help you to uncover your natural, true, authentic self, like, that's under all these layers of anxiety, trauma, everything else, worries and everything. A good counsellor is like, it's like a corn on the cob that peels back, you know, all those layers. A good counsellor, what they'll do is that they'll know when you're doing the dance. My counsellor at times says to me, "Thelma, I am not dancing around the room after you." And she noticed all my ways to challenge her, to put the conversation onto her so I wouldn't have to talk about stuff, to find all of my stuff. So that, and then when they do find that, holy shit, it's like you're been seen for the first time. It's like you're caught with your hand in the candy jar and you're like, okay, I've got to take responsibility right now. I think that's it, Ciara, isn't it? And it's like you have, in that moment, you were seen, and now it's time for you to take responsibility. Holy shit, there's no adult there to...
You're suddenly the adult. You're not the kid anymore, getting away with stuff.
And the girl put a comment there. Do you want
that
to
was Marcel as well. He said, I was apprehensive about taking antidepressants for a long time, but the alternative was way worse to consider. And this is a conversation I had with that girl.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
It's fantastic. And it's the truth. This is a conversation I had with that girl's boyfriend the other day. And we were talking about what she had gone through. And I was saying, you know, there is absolutely a place for tablets. There is absolutely a place for tablets when you are in a crisis situation. I would never tell anybody, do not take tablets because they're not good for you. When you go to your doctor and your doctor knows you well enough to know the thing that you need in that moment, absolutely listen to their advice. And when you have a chemist who gives a shit about you and cares about you, which Tom Tracy is amazing, then absolutely they're going to put you in the right place. And sometimes taking the tablets is the thing that's going to get you away from the thoughts of maybe not being here.
Or just to even know that those tablets are there. I know that I had two choices. One is to take the long-term one, which is 10 milligrams every day, one every day. And then the other thing is that it's, what do you call them, relaxers? Like a Valium.
So relaxers,
yeah. So it's like a relaxer. That basically when you're up in that spiral and you're about to go out, as you had said, that girl, what's her name again?
Marcel, it's a guy.
Oh, who's it? Oh, we can't go up there.
Go down.
Oh yeah, sorry. As you had said about the antidepressant tablets, and when you get to a point where you think that there's nowhere else you can go, that the really bad thoughts come in, like of suicide or whatever the case is, that you cannot cope. So I had these backup tablets that when I'm in that state, I can take one of those, and two actually he said I could take, and they just really bring me down. The problem is that I had to take one time. I was afraid to take the two. I took the one and it started to relax me, but it brought me back into that moment of the drugs. So I never took them again after that. But at least I know that I have them there, that if the shit really hits the fan, now I do hopefully think that I'm on top of all of that now, so I think that's far past me, please God, touch wood, that I don't need to, but there is that comfort, Ciara, to know that that's actually there. And I have like good strong friends now, because I've nearly bent their ear just talking to them about like anxiety, not necessarily when I'm in it, but just educating them about anxiety. And so that they know now, tell them, look, you ring me whenever you need to. If you're having a moment, ring me, let me know. And only they allowed me to speak up to them, and they're willing to listen and be the friend that I needed them to be, and showing me that they are that good friend, that I know now that I have supports. But not only that, but some of them in turn are actually able to open up to me and say they are going through something similar, but they have like a shame about it and a fear, and that's the reason why, Ciara, isn't it, that we actually set up these chats in the first place, was to take away the fear, to take away like you know, the not being good enough, or nobody can listen to me,
and the taboo around everything,
like
these stupid taboos about what we can and can't talk about, what we should and shouldn't talk about,
the judgment.
Jesus, if we were to listen to what we should or shouldn't do for our whole lives, we'd never leave the house and we'd never open our mouths. It's ridiculous. So getting rid of the stigma around all of this, mental health is really important. Mental health awareness and mental awareness, they're all really important. And to discuss them, to be open about them, to feel like you can be open and in a safe space. That's what we wanted to create. And, you know, around the whole, now I had a brain freeze too.
I'm so glad. It's not just me.
It was the hash cake.
Can I just ask you this actually, Ciara, and we might discuss this another time. It was only when I got my anxiety and I was doing some research about it to find out the different types. So I think mine was spontaneous. Well, it was, and now I do know some of the triggers, that after I had my second child, because I had a lot of stuff going on with my first child, and then I had a second child, and I think I only recognized, because I didn't know, because we weren't educated in any of this stuff, that I think I had postnatal depression for a few months after I had my second child, and nobody said it to me. I didn't know. I didn't, like, I was crying, I was upset, not all of the time, but I just wasn't myself. And I put it down to, I'm after having a new child, my husband's gone and working, you know, my first child was sick and he's after having major life heart surgery, and other sick family members and different things, that I'd all that going on. And I think that maybe if you've had maybe postnatal depression that you could be one of those people who has a little bit of anxiety going on for you to get it in the first place. I'm not sure, or whether it's a hormonal trigger that set that off. I don't know.
I was told by a doctor when Josh was 6 years old that I had delayed onset of postnatal depression.
Do you reckon that's the thing?
I was like, well, he said it. I was sitting there going,
but it could be, because there is what's you call it, like stress delays and stuff like that, like you know, when I watch this backup thing and tell them that's the word.
Okay, so
anyway.
Listen, I tell you what, listen to every single one of you who have come on and watched. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know it was a long video and we do tend to chat a lot and get carried away, but we hope that you have gotten something. You know something, I'm not even going to touch the screen because I don't even know what I'm doing. We hope that you've gotten something from the chat today, and you know, we're always here for the chats. You can always comment, you can always come on, you can say whatever you like, and we're happy to address and respond and chat to anyone. You can always come on camera with us. We're here. You can even come to the house with us on a Tuesday morning and you can have the chats with us if you'd like. We don't mind. We've got room. We have to figure out how to set it up so that we can have more than 2 people on the couch.
And can I just mention a concern of mine, if you don't mind? Thanks, Paula. Is that I'm after discussing with you guys today some extremely personal stuff, and stuff that I haven't told lots of people, just close family and friends. And I really would appreciate no hate mail, no negative judgment from people. I am doing this raw and vulnerable, and I'm extremely sensitive. And I just want to say that the reason why I personally am doing this type of stuff is so that I can reach out and try and help some of you guys and let you know that I kind of hate this term now. It is okay not to be okay. I don't know, is it okay not to be okay, to be honest? You know, I think that if enough of us, as you were saying, like supported each other, and that we wouldn't have so many people saying it's okay not to be okay.
Thelma did her video on miscarriage a few months ago, and we had sat and we had talked about it beforehand. And for me, I think it's a really amazing thing for people to do. And I supported her.
That was when I was in it, and I was bawling and crying in it.
And I supported her 1,000,000% through it, because I thought that it was a fantastic thing. She wasn't looking for attention. She wasn't coming on camera to do any of that. She was genuinely in the middle of a shitstorm and had decided that it was something she could share so that other people would feel a bit better with what they were going through. And she did get a backlash. There was amazing support and fantastic messages, and so many people saying, thanks for saying X because I'm going through Y. But there were some people who they wanted to put her in her place. Yeah. And it's such a horrible thing to have happen, because...
Well, it knocked my confidence.
Totally.
And it just made me feel that I can't speak my truth. And like, I don't know if any of you follow like Oprah and that, but she's always on about like speaking her truth all the time, and how it's so important to speak your truth. And myself and Ciara, like our whole thing here is that if we can speak our truth of what we've been through in life and try to let you guys in on that, share that with you, so that you then can do that with your friends or with us, we don't mind.
Paula Gibbons, one of my favourite people in the whole world. She's the most gentle, gorgeous, kind, caring friend I know. I love you to bits. Thanks, P, and thanks for watching. And Marcel, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Good. And we'll be back next week. Yeah. So if any of you want us to talk about anything, remember you can message. You can ask us. We are going to keep the topics coming. They'll be all hit hard and heavy and all that jazz.
Or if there's something particular that you guys want us to talk about, we do have probably year content. I do have also my own page, Thelma Gibbons, that's life. If you want to follow me on there, we're doing the same kind of videos. And we've got YouTube channels as well. But yeah, if any of you have a particular topic that you'd like us to talk about and are going through a specific thing and you want to join us for that topic, you're absolutely more than welcome. We won't bite.
100%.
All we want to know is, how do you like your tea?
Yeah. Or coffee.
Okay, guys.
Or hot chocolate.
Have a lovely day.
Mwah, thanks so much for listening and watching. Loads of love. Bye, guys.